Action Network, a weekly internet radio show presented by Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative and sponsored by Mass Therapeutics. We're coming to you live from Indianapolis, Indiana, and we're here to serve you by providing up-to-date information and opinion on all matters pertaining to sickle cell disease. My name is Gary A. Gibson, and I am your host for the next 2 hours. Let me start by saying that I don't have sickle cell disease, nor do I carry the sickle cell trait. In spite of that, I am no stranger to sickle cell. Quite the contrary. You see, even though I don't have sickle cell, it has had a very huge impact on my life. That's true because its complications took my wife from me after 12 years of marriage. It also caused her to have a miscarriage that resulted in the loss of our twin babies that she was carrying while in a sickle cell crisis. So all told, sickle cell has taken 3 lives from me, and I feel the pain of those lives, of those losses every single day. I currently serve as the president and CEO of Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative, a community-based organization that has been serving people with sickle cell for over 45 years. Each day, I attempt to transform the pain of my losses into positive energy that is focused on making a difference for those who are battling sickle cell. From being involved with sickle cell for over 40 years, I'm able to say that much progress has been made, but there is still so much work to do. The show is an opportunity to contribute to the ever-expanding dialogue about sickle cell that is taking place all around the world. Our show is about raising awareness, but it is also about so much more. I like to say that sickle cell awareness is important, but we need more than awareness. Those living with sickle cell are already aware. That makes me ask, so what are we doing for them? My answer is, not enough. That's why we've named this show the Sickle Cell Action Network, because awareness without action has very little impact. We want this show to be a source of information and a call to action to help those who must live with sickle cell in their midst. We have designed the show to provide information that is beneficial to patients, caregivers, family members, and friends alike. Most importantly, we want people with sickle cell to know and understand that they are not alone. The Sickle Cell Action Network show features live guests who are healthcare providers, patients, advocates, and others who are engaged in the fight to eradicate sickle cell and ease its burden on those it affects. Today, we're pleased to have a very special guest who will speak with us today about living with sickle cell disease and also about the Sickle Cell Warrior community. Joining me today by phone is the one and only Tosin Ola-Weissman, known to most as Tosin Ola. Tosin is the founder of Sickle Cell Warriors, the world's largest patient-driven community of its kind. We're very happy to have Tosin with us today. But before we get to today's topic, I want to share some of the other upcoming topics with you so that you'll know what we're going to be doing. In future weeks, we'll cover such topics as sickle cell's narcotics dilemma, traveling with sickle cell, connecting the sickle cell community, and many, many others. So as you can see, we are serious about sharing valuable information, and we hope that you will join us every week, same time, same station. If you've missed some of our previous editions or wish that you could listen to them again, don't worry. Just go to the Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative YouTube page and you will find them there. Now, let's get on with our show, and we'll start with this week's edition of Sickle Cell News Update. I have 3 good stories here today, interesting and good. The first story is interesting. This is a report on a research study that has recently been released, and the title of the article about the research is called Parental Catastrophizing Worsens Sickle Cell Disability, and it's coming to us from Austin, Texas. And the article reads, "The negative effects of pain catastrophizing are underscored in new research indicating that even the catastrophizing of a parent can have an adverse effect on function in children with sickle cell disease. Interestingly, the effect is not seen in protective parents who do not catastrophize pain," the researcher said. So the word catastrophize is one you don't hear very often, and catastrophize basically means to turn everything into a catastrophe, to make things worse than they really are. So as the article continues, it says, "Our findings are an important step forward to extend the literature in pediatric sickle cell disease because we are finding consistent patterns that are known to occur in other chronic pain conditions in youth. That is, the key role that parents play in how children with sickle cell disease cope with pain," so says the first author of the study, Sumitri Sil, Ph.D., a pediatric psychologist and assistant professor of pediatrics at Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. Approximately 23% of youth with sickle cell disease experience chronic pain, which can include moderate to severe functional disability. Although the negative effects of overly protective parenting and catastrophizing on children have been documented in other conditions, research on the influence of those factors on the unique chronic pain associated with sickle cell disease has been lacking. The new study, presented at the American Pain Society's 35th annual scientific meeting, involved 40 adolescents with a mean age of 14 years who had chronic pain related to sickle cell disease, and chronic pain that was defined as pain 3 or more days a week persisting for 3 or more months. The adolescents completed measurements of pain and disability on the Functional Disability Inventory, and their parents completed measures on the Pain Catastrophizing Scale and parenting behaviors in response to pain. The results showed a significant two-way interaction between protective parenting and parent catastrophizing in predicting higher pain intensity and frequency and increased adolescent disability. Parents reporting high levels of pain catastrophizing who had high engagement in protective parenting behaviors were associated with severe levels of child disability. In contrast, however, protective parenting was not associated with disability when parents had low levels of catastrophizing. Our findings suggest that children and adolescents in chronic sickle cell pain are at risk for higher levels of physical impairment when their parents engage in high levels of catastrophizing, thinking about their child's pain, and engaging in high levels of protective parenting behaviors, Dr. Sill said. The negative effect on disability was not surprising because children and adolescents may end up with fewer opportunities to learn how to effectively deal with their chronic pain and continue to engage in the activities that are important for their overall life, Dr. Sill added. For example, parents may rearrange activities, anticipate a child's needs, complete tasks for them, and allow them to stay home from school and restrict social activities, all in well-intending efforts to try to prevent an increase in pain. For youth who are managing chronic pain, it is important for them to learn how to handle pain and still do the activities that are important to them and have a good quality of life, Dr. Sill said. Dr. Sill noted, however, that pain associated with sickle cell disease may be more complex than other chronic pain conditions. So this basically is saying that more research needs to be done on the role that parents play in terms of how bad they talk about the sickle cell pain that their children are experiencing. According to the study, the more that parents make out of the pain that the children are experiencing, the more the children are going to feel as if they are impaired functionally. The next study or story actually comes from the Clarion Ledger, and this is coming from Mississippi. The headline is UMMC Sickle Cell Clinic Reopens. And the way that the article reads is like this. When registered nurse Tyra Hickman cares for sickle cell patients at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, she can feel the agony of the pain crises that accompany the blood disease. Hickman has been there before. Diagnosed with sickle cell at birth, the Clinton resident spent her childhood battling the disease, sometime as a patient at UMMC's Batson's Children's Hospital. But as I grew up, I learned more about how my body handles it. I can manage a pain crisis now, said Hickman, who received her bachelor's degree in nursing from Mississippi University for Women. At age 26, she's a beacon of hope for her patients in the medical center's sickle cell day clinic, which operates weekdays from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Most are excited and happy to know there is someone here who can honestly relate to what they're going through, she said. Hickman teams with nurse practitioner Chandra Wilson to staff the clinic that reopened May 18th in refurbished fifth-floor quarters on the UMMC campus. The 8-bed clinic temporarily closed in its former location in August 2015 as the hospital began the process of finding and staffing a larger space with room to grow. In the interim, the medical center continued to offer sickle cell services in its emergency department and at a Monday-only clinic at the Jackson Medical Mall staffed by hematology-oncology caregivers from the UMMC Cancer Institute. That clinic's main purpose is to see sickle cell patients by appointment to keep them on track with medications and physical exams so they can best manage their disease. UMMC is the only hospital in Mississippi that has tried to organize care for sickle cell patients by creating a specialized treatment clinic. Sickle cell patients also are seen on a regular basis at emergency rooms at other metro area and Mississippi hospitals, where wait times vary depending on how busy staff is in treating those with life-threatening disease or injuries. Although sickle cell patients can experience significant pain, it's usually not considered life-threatening. Patients who use the day clinic typically are experiencing a pain crisis and need relief as soon as possible. The sickle cell nurses administer painkillers and fluids as needed while checking for other health problems that could exacerbate the crisis, require separate treatment or hospitalizations, or need to have later referrals of the patient to a specialist for their primary care provider. On its first day, the reopened clinic saw 8 patients. One required hospitalization because her pain wasn't relieved. The average clinic visit is 3 to 4 hours. We give them IV fluids to help open up their blood cells and help them move around, Wilson said. Patients can be given a mild analgesic up to opioids based on their level of pain, she said, in addition to anti-nausea medications. So, congratulations to the University of Mississippi Medical Center for reopening their dedicated sickle cell clinic just a couple of weeks ago. Our last story today comes to us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And the title of the article is Children's Hospital Leading Way in Sickle Cell Research. And the article reads like this. When she was just 6 months old, Cordelia Fox had a stroke, the first of 3 she would experience as a child. At the time, doctors told her parents she wouldn't live past 5 because she suffered from sickle cell anemia, a genetic blood disorder in which abnormal shaped red blood cells hinder the flow of oxygen through the body. Now 19, the bubbly Calgarian is cured of the disease thanks to a new stem cell transplant procedure being spearheaded among children by the Alberta Children's Hospital with potentially global implications. To date, the hospital has successfully cured 9 children of sickle cell anemia with a new protocol for stem cell transplants, which involve a bone marrow donation from a sibling who is a 100% match but does not have sickle cell anemia. The odds a patient has such a sibling are 1 in 5. Alberta Children's approach is unique because it is likely the first place to conduct transplants on children that don't involve chemotherapy, said Gregory Gilcher, a pediatric oncologist who leads the sickle cell blood and marrow transplant program. Drawing on a treatment used successfully on adults in the U.S., sick children at the hospital are instead given medications that intensively suppress their immune system and a low dose of radiation in the week before the transplant. The lighter treatment is less risky than chemotherapy, which can come at the cost of infertility and is more likely to cause graft versus host disease, in which the transplanted bone marrow creates serious complications by rejecting the patient's body, Gilcher said. For her part, Fox said that the transplant she received from her elder sister when she was 17 transformed her into a whole new person. The greatest thing is to not have those people be there anymore to tell me things I cannot do, said Fox, whose rebellious streak prompted her to do forbidden things, such as drinking a Jamaican grapefruit drink and intense exercise that would make her ill. Prior to being cured, Fox miserably looked ahead to a life filled with monthly blood transfusions that involved spending a whole day at the hospital. Though a necessary treatment, the transfusions left her exhausted, pulled her away from school, and made her upset, she said. She had the words "set free" tattooed on her forearm on her 19th birthday to symbolize a new chapter in her life. Congratulations to Children's Hospital in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, for curing 9 people of sickle cell disease, and congratulations to Cordelia Fox, who is now cured. That's it for Sickle Cell News Update here on the Sickle Cell Action Network. We're going to take a break, and when we return, we will be bringing you the outstanding Tosin. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network, and I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and I am thrilled that today we are speaking to Tosin Ola, the founder of Sickle Cell Warriors community. Tosin knows firsthand the challenges of living with sickle cell disease. She's a practicing registered nurse. She's a mother of twin toddlers, and so many things that we can tell you about Tosin, and we're going to give her the chance to tell you a little bit about herself. But the first thing I want to do is just say a welcome to you, Tosin, and thank you for being on our show.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Hello, Gary, and hello to all the listeners of the Sickle Cell Action Network. Hello to all the Warriors.
Awesome. So, Tosin, we always ask people to tell us a little bit about themselves so that those that are listening know who they're listening to. So would you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, how old are you? I know I shouldn't ask that of women, but I always do, particularly in cases of sickle cell anemia. Where were you born? Where do you live now? And what is your hemoglobin type? So just give us a little bit of information about you, background information.
All right. Well, as you guys know, my name is Tosin. I was born in Nigeria, in Edo, which is a super tiny town outside of Ileife. And I came to the U.S. when I was 4 years old, returned back to Nigeria when I was 10, came back for college when I was 18, and I've been here ever since. I'm 35 now, so I'm pretty much assimilated into the American culture and the American lifestyle. All my friends tell me I sound like a valley girl.
Actually, well, I wasn't going to say it, but sort of. Anyway, and so where do you live now?
Right now I live in San Diego, California. So the West Coast is the best coast. All of you guys come on down. We have sunny weather, 300 plus days a year.
San Diego is, I think, my favorite city in the entire United States. Nothing against where I live now, which is kind of a neat city, but San Diego is just awesome, and as you say, the weather is just phenomenal. So I'm just really jealous of you for being able to be out there. What's your hemoglobin type, Tosin?
I have sickle cell hemoglobin SS, which is, as you guys know, the most common type. Probably more than 60% of the population with sickle cell have the SS type. And for me, I've had a lot of vaso-occlusive crises through my life. It's pretty frequent. And then getting older now, in my 30s with sickle cell, I'm having more and more chronic pain than I used to before due to the tissue ischemia that I've been dealing with.
So you have, you're having more chronic pain, which is relatively typical. Are you having fewer crises then?
Now, so I feel like that helps a little bit, but I'm still having about every single month I'm having 1 to 2 significant crises pain episodes.
Okay. So I know that you are a humble person, so this is going to be hard for you to hear, but I'm going to say that you are an amazing person on so many levels, and that's why I feel so honored to have you here on our show today. Let's start by showing people just how amazing you are. So my first question for you today is, how in the world have you been able to get 18,000 people connected on Sickle Cell Warriors?
Oh, right. Okay.
18,000 people, that's a lot of people.
Yes, we have on the Facebook page over like 17,850 people last time I checked, and then combined with Twitter and our other social media channels, it's about 18,000. But our website is really, which draws the most amount of visitors. We get about 25,000 unique hits a month, and I think it's just a combination of factors. The first one is the community. When I first started back in 2005, there was not much out there, so people really had a thirst for having a community-like space where they could share their experiences with sickle cell. And we grew organically from that. And everyone tells other people, and the page has, just been shared among other people, and that has helped it grow. There's really nothing that I did specifically, I don't think. I just put my stories out there, shared the information that I had, and people responded to that. So the community is what has really accepted us and shared us and helped us grow as much as we have.
Yeah, but, so Sickle Cell Warriors is the largest patient-run, community-based nonprofit organization for sickle cell disease in the entire world, Tosin. Please explain what Sickle Cell Warriors is.
Well, Sickle Cell Warriors is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating and raising awareness for sickle cell disease, and especially empowering people with sickle cell disease to understand that they don't have to live as a victim. They can live a vibrant life with sickle cell and, rise to whatever their dreams, hopes, and aspirations are. We have 4 main platforms. Advocacy, obviously, is our biggest one. Awareness, education, and empowerment. And then we also do a lot of education towards research, because we feel like the more people get involved with sickle cell research, the more likely it is that we are able to eventually have potentially a universal cure and better treatment options for sickle cell disease. But the page, the whole organization, it really started as a rant. It started as one day I was in the hospital by myself, feeling isolated and alone, and I went searching for a sickle cell community, and there was none back then. So.
And when is back then, Tosin?
I'm sorry?
When was back then?
Oh, this was 2005.
Okay.
Back when the internet was still new and young, and there was really nothing. The few blogs that existed back then, they weren't being updated frequently, and so I just started sharing my story. I just started telling people about my experience and what I was going through, and gradually, just with consistency and being very open about my experiences, people found the page, and they just started commenting. And from then, we started the Facebook page. I think that was circa 2007. And it was pretty much because I was on Facebook, and I was like, oh, look, they have this new feature. You can make a page now.
Okay.
and so I shared that with, the few sickle cell friends that I had met, and it just organically grew from there. We started the website in 2009, and that migrated from the original blog, which was, Sickle Cell Can Kiss My Butt. And that was the original blog that I had in 2005, but we migrated to the website in 2009, and since then it's just been growing leaps and bounds, essentially.
So you have been connecting people. Maybe you didn't intend to do it that way in the very beginning, but the effect is that you have been connecting people now for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome. So why should people join Sickle Cell Warriors? What's in it for them?
Well, for them, I guess the best way to put it is you get a space where you can share your sickle cell experience with other people who understand exactly what you're going through. Sickle Cell Warriors is different from other Facebook groups and Facebook pages because we have a mission statement, and we have rules and regulations, and we strive to keep it a very positive space. So even if you don't agree with what someone else is posting, according to our guidelines, you still have to be respectful. So people don't get attacked, people don't get harassed, and they feel very comfortable in sharing in a safe space. Most of the information that you will learn from there is from other people dealing with the same situations that you're going through, or pretty much people who have walked in your shoes. So you are essentially not isolated, and you're no longer alone. You have 18,000 plus people who understand your journey, who understand your struggles, and who can relate. And that sense of community is something that you cannot buy that. That is something that is desperately needed in the sickle cell community, because as you know, many people with sickle cell, they might be the only one in their whole family that has it, And yes, your doctor is a great source of medical information, but there are many personal aspects to having sickle cell that you don't feel comfortable talking to your doctor about, or you can't talk to your mom about. You know, who are you going to ask about how sickle cell affects your period? Who are you going to ask whether you should get a tattoo or not? You know, these are not things that you can ask through normal channels, but with Sickle Cell Warriors, you have people there who can help you on your journey and give you great advice.
Well, I'd say that those are good reasons for people to consider joining Sickle Cell Warriors. And I agree with you that one of the biggest challenges over the many years that people have been living with sickle cell is isolation. That seemed to have been a standard part of the disease. It just sort of came with it. And it's very difficult for people to manage themselves in a situation where they feel isolated. And I think the greatest thing of all has been the introduction of the internet and social media when it comes to sickle cell, because all of a sudden all of these people who have been suffering by themselves alone in isolation no longer have to be isolated. And I think the entire sickle cell community should thank you for starting what has turned into a tremendous thing where people can connect and not feel isolated. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to take a break. And that question is, what were some of the challenges that you faced in building Sickle Cell Warriors into what it is today, and how did you overcome those challenges? So you made a statement a moment ago that you have a mission statement. By the way, what is that mission statement, Tosin?
Our mission statement is to empower other warriors, and I refer to sickle cell patients, people living with sickle cell, as warriors, because every single day that we wake up, it's a battle. There's something with our sickle cell that we have to deal with, and so every time you conquer one of those battles, you're essentially a warrior. So our mission statement focuses on empowering warriors, empowering people living with sickle cell, that they can have a vibrant life with sickle cell. And this is something that is very near and dear to my heart, because I don't want people to feel like just because they have this chronic medical condition that knocks you down, that you have to stay down. You just have to somehow within yourself, somehow through God's intervention, somehow through the universe, you just have to find the strength to pull yourself up and still live your life and go after your dreams.
Well, you have said it again so very well. What kind of challenges did you face, if any?
Well, the original challenge was just letting people know about the page and letting them understand what's expected of them. I think when we're dealing with chronic pain, people tend to lash out, and I mean, it's something that I do. I'm not immune to that. And when you're dealing with these high levels of pain for such a long time, it's just very difficult to stay in a positive space. So just letting the warriors who use the page know that even though you're in pain, we still expect you to treat each other with kindness and respect, and maintaining that expectation no matter what. I mean, oftentimes, sometimes we'll get one or two people who don't really resonate with the mission statement, who don't really want to stay in a positive mindset, who are harassing others or being mean to others. And I have taken many warriors to the side and just let them know, hey, that's not accepted in this community, and this is what's expected of you. So keeping the page a positive space is number one. The second challenge has been just avoiding the drama that comes with Facebook. There's an inherent drama to Facebook, because it gives you a window into people's lives, and because of that, people feel like they know you more than how you know your real friend. But because people see your Facebook page, they feel like they know everything going on with you, and they know things about you, and so people feel comfortable to cast judgment. And so that's been another challenge, just keeping that kindness and respect at the forefront of the community. The third issue is, because I have sickle cell disease and it's not an open page, when I'm not posting, people can't see the post. And so it's not like a group where everyone can post and everyone can see it. It was set up as a page, and this was intentional because I wanted to have more control in the content that was posted, but at the same time, when I'm not posting or when one of the moderators are not posting, then people aren't able to see the posts that are going on, and so people sometimes feel like they're not being heard or they feel like we're ignoring them. And it's not intentional. It's just when the page is quiet, it means all of us are sick.
Right.
I keep trying to let everyone know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to take a break. We're speaking with the outstanding Tosin Ola, founder of Sickle Cell Warriors. When we return, we'll continue our discussion with this most amazing person. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and we are speaking with Tosin Ola, the founder of Sickle Cell Warriors. Great to have her here. We're excited and thrilled that she is here with us. I'm going to continue the discussion. Tosin, you have a very, very informative and polished website at sicklecellwarriors.com. If our listeners haven't visited your site yet, I think they need to, and they should do it today. The site is quite extensive. I have to ask, who helps you with that?
Me, myself, and I.
You, yourself, and I. It's a staff of three, right?
Yes. It's actually a really interesting story. When I first started, I didn't know anything about building a website, anything about templates, anything about HTML, and at first, the original blog was with Blogspot, and so they did everything for you. And I've always had this vision in my mind of what I wanted the website to look like and how I wanted it to have just all these bits of information and all these pages and tabs with just all this information. And so it's been a labor of love, and it's been a passion project of mine for many years. You know, I take an hour here and there just to fine tune it and to add things to it. So if there's anything that's on the site that doesn't work, it's my fault. I take full responsibility. But a lot of the articles were originally, they moved over from the original blog, and then through the years, just any topic that people request or any topic that I've been dealing with or is, you know, that has come to my attention, I try to write about. And then we also have a great group of writers who have helped to, they submit their work, and probably 2013 was the year that we probably put out most of the articles on the website because we had a great group of writers in 2013. But over the years, you know, each of them have gone their separate ways, and now it's just myself and two other writers who are still working on the website. So Aljanae and Tiffany, they've been the ones really doing a lot of the publishing with the articles, especially from the parent and the children perspective. That has been a perspective that was really needed on the website. So all those articles there have been from her.
Well, you know, I've been on your website several times. I actually went on there again today just to be sure I was prepared for our show today. But I noticed that you even have a plug for the Sickle Cell Action Network on your website, and I definitely appreciate that. But tell folks a little bit about the kind of content. And you've been talking about the writers and stuff, but tell folks a little bit about the kind of content that's on your website. Again, people need to see it. It's a great website.
So we have 7 main sections. The first one is called Sickle Cell Diary, and that's pretty much anything in my experience about sickle cell. The next one is for parents and caregivers, and so it's written from a parent perspective, and it's written by a mom who has a daughter with sickle cell and just the things that she has learned in her journey. We have a section called Warriors in the Spotlight, where we feature people who are living their lives despite of having sickle cell, who are chasing after their dreams. And we actually interview, you know, patients living with sickle cell disease who are pursuing careers, who are living vibrantly, who are following their dreams. And we have a whole interview series with them called Warriors in the Spotlight. And many people submit to that. I believe we have over almost close to 100 articles, and those are just essentially submitted by the community for us to host on the website. We have a section where we talk about alternative remedies, and these are, anything that is not a medication, that's not a drug, but, anything that we've heard about that has helped to improve people living with sickle cell, that has helped to improve their lives. So it could be anything from diet to recipes about, great foods rich in thiocyanate, to discussions about things like diascovite and things like that. We also have a section on the latest sickle cell news and updates, which I try to do it on a quarterly basis, just to let people know what's going on in the sickle cell community, especially when it comes to research and things like that. And then we have an advocacy and activism section where we talk about the events and the advocacy initiatives that are going on in sickle cell disease. So we cannot talk about the website through this whole interview. There's so many different areas and sections. We have another one called coping strategies, where, coping strategies that have worked to manage sickle cell. It could be something from eating cloves, because that helps with pain, to dealing with insomnia, or, managing your decision whether to get on hydroxyurea or not, things like that. Another great section that's a personal favorite of mine is love and relationships, because we can never talk about that enough.
That's for sure.
So we talk about dating, and when do you tell your significant other that you have sickle cell disease? Do you decide to have children? We just put as much anything that I find that is helpful, anything that our writers find that has been helpful to them. We just want to share it with the entire sickle cell community. So if there's a search button on the website, it's on the right-hand side. If you just type in a topic that's on your mind, I'm sure it'll bring up an article related to it.
That is a tremendous service that you're doing, and again, we recommend that people check out sicklecellwarriors.com. Tosin, a membership with 18,000 members has the ability to create an impact on public policy. Do you have any plans for Sickle Cell Warriors to try to influence sickle cell policy? For instance, if the Centers for Disease Control, who we recently had a town hall meeting with here in Indianapolis, if they received 18,000 letters encouraging them to do more for sickle cell, I think they would have to take notice. So what are your thoughts on advocacy and policy influence with the Sickle Cell Warriors?
We absolutely support advocacy. With the Centers for Disease Control, from my conversations with Althea Grant, what I've learned from them is that they would love to support sickle cell, but they don't have the funding for it. So if we wanted to initiate some policy change, we would have to actually go after the senators and the House of Representatives to get them to change their funding structure to increase the funding for sickle cell disease. And that's something that we've pursued with pretty much every single initiative that has been in the sickle cell space in the last 5 years, from the FDA public meeting to the letter to Obama to the Speak Out Obama campaign. We're helping work on the pediatric priority review legislation, and so we definitely are in support. But and this is something that I want people to really take as a note of action. You can do something individually yourself about sickle cell disease, about the plight of sickle cell disease in your local government, on your state level. You please don't just sit around waiting for someone else to come in on a white horse to save the day. Like, we all need to band together to make things happen. And we're trying to do it on a national level, but we also need, families and patients and people who care about sickle cell to do it in every single element. You could even create change in your hospital. And, if you go to the ER and you're treated horribly, ask to speak to the CEO. When you're feeling better, call the hospital and say you'd like to speak to the CEO of the hospital. And as a patient, they should see you and just lay out your complaints. Be very factual. Present, don't address it emotionally. Be very respectful, and just let them know, look, I was not treated properly in your emergency room. This is exactly what happened to me. This is the recommendation according to the adult sickle cell guidelines of what should be happening. Instead, this is what happened. And I would like to see change happen in your ER. And imagine if every single person in the U.S. did that in their emergency room. We would no longer have this disparate issue that we all seem to come across. So I know it's hard, I know it's scary, but we all have to do our part.
Well, you do, and I've said this more than once, even on this show. One of my favorite quotes of all time was a quote from Frederick Douglass, who said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." And that doesn't necessarily mean rebellion, but what it means is if you want power or if you want policy, just interchange the words power with policy. Even policy concedes nothing without a demand. If people don't ask for it, nothing will change. And that's pretty much what that quote means. And so you're absolutely on point, and it's true that any one individual can help make change. It's just that when they bond together and become a stronger force, that change becomes loud enough for people to take notice. But without everybody possibly participating, if they could participate, nobody pays attention. So you have to make noise in order for people to pay attention. What's next for Sickle Cell Warriors? Do you have any plans about where your movement is going, and if so, can you share some of that with us?
So next on the calendar, we have the Patient, Family, and Advocate Symposium, and this is an annual educational symposium. It's going to be in Los Angeles this year. It's July 28th through the 31st, and it's pretty much a 3-day symposium, and it's chock full of programs specifically to help you leave feeling empowered and educated to help better manage your sickle cell. So we have a patient track, and we have a track for parents. And essentially, these are plenary sessions, so they're educational sessions. And the last time we had this symposium, it was in Atlanta in 2014, and we talked about everything. I mean, we had a parent roundtable where we had 5 parents with sickle cell, who had children with sickle cell disease, sharing their experiences with all the other parents in the room. We had a couples roundtable where we had couples who had been together for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years, who shared their experiences of how to have successful relationships. We had a session for traveling, how to travel by air, by land, by sea, effectively, and not have a crisis when you get there. So we have great programs planned for this educational symposium, and so that's right on. That's coming up in about a month and a half. So we're really excited about that.
Is that on your website?
Yes, that is on the website, and I'm actually going to be updating it today, but please definitely save the date. It's July 28th through the 31st, and it's going to be in Los Angeles. So please take off the time that you need so you guys can come. It's going to be an amazing event. We've been planning it for some time now, and we have a lot of support from the sickle cell community, especially the Sickle Cell Community Consortium. They are our co-sponsors of this event, and so it's definitely a labor of love. It's designed by patients in the sickle cell community for patients in the sickle cell community. As you guys know, there's no conference dedicated specifically to us, so this is for us to all learn from and enjoy.
Well, congratulations for being able to set that up, and I do wish you well. I'm going to actually check my calendar. I've actually wanted to come in 2014, but I wasn't able to. So, as a not-for-profit agency in the sickle cell field, we at Martin Center struggle to get the amount of funding that we need to provide services to our client members. Would you tell us a little bit about where Sickle Cell Warriors gets its funding, and is that a challenge for you as well?
Oh, yeah. Funding is definitely a challenge for pretty much every nonprofit organization. We operate as a lean model, so most of everyone who works with us is on a volunteer basis, which is great because, we don't have to have such a huge overhead, but at the same time, it limits us in the amount amount of things that we can do because we have to go based on people's schedules and their availability. So ideally, if I had unlimited funds, we could definitely do more for the organization, but we can only do what we can with what we have. And most of the funding that we get is from donations, and it's from people donating money through the website, or donating directly to Sickle Cell Warriors, and just helping financially with the different events that we have. We also receive targeted grants from different organizations who specialize in, who are donating money for sickle cell causes. So the grant process, as you know, Gary, it's a long, arduous process to apply for a grant.
Oh, yes.
Before you finally receive the check, and you're like, yes, but it's like 3 months after you need it, and the bill collectors are calling. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge for us as well. But I always, personally, because Sickle Cell Warriors, I always refer to it as like my third child. I will lay down my life for her. I will do whatever I can for her. So even if it's coming out of my own pocket, I don't hesitate to just do what needs to be done to get things accomplished.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Tosin Ola, the founder of Sickle Cell Warriors, and you are listening to her on the Sickle Cell Action Network Internet Radio Show. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll continue our discussion with this amazing person. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network, and we are speaking with Tosin Ola, the founder of Sickle Cell Warriors. Tremendous person, lively, upbeat, vibrant. She's used that word a couple times in description of other people, and it certainly applies to her as well. Tosin, although I'm not sure why anyone would need to start a new advocacy group, since we already have your Sickle Cell Warriors and Dr. Lakia Bailey's Sickle Cell Community Consortium, what advice would you have for someone who's interested in starting a sickle cell advocacy group? And before I let you answer that, I just kind of want to make a statement that I don't know how many times, I actually have lost count, that as the CEO of Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative, I've been asked by other people that come to me and say, I want to start a new sickle cell foundation or a new sickle cell center. And my first question is to you, why do you want to start a new one? Why don't you want to help build the one that exists? Therefore, we've got people that want to start groups all the time, and I can appreciate that, particularly if they're in an area, say like North Dakota or someplace like that, where we know there really isn't anything. But, if people insist that they want to start an advocacy group, what would be your advice to them?
So the first advice actually stems from your question. First, research what's in your area. And the reason I say that is because, yes, there aren't enough groups in the grand scheme of the United States of America and the impact that we want to have, but at the same time, there's usually one or two other groups in your area doing something similar to what you want to do. And it could be that that group does not have that spark needed to get that arm of the organization moving forward. For example, with Sickle Cell Warriors, one thing that we really lacked a few years ago was the research arm. And Lakia Bailey is she's just super, uber smart, super strong with research. And so when she came on board to help us, she really helped to strengthen our research, and not just the research, also our advocacy arm, which was desperately needed. And you coming into an organization that already exists allows you to utilize their knowledge, their resources, their expertise, their capital to do what you want to do. Why reinvent the wheel? However, one thing I noticed is that sometimes, especially with having my own nonprofit organization, we have a laser focus on the things we want to do. And perhaps you may want to work in a different area that doesn't align with our focus. For example, if someone came to me and they wanted to start a group mentoring young girls with sickle cell disease, ideally, yes, I would love to do that with Sickle Cell Warriors, but we don't have the resources for that. So if you wanted to start a group like that, I'm like, you know what, go for it, and we'll help you to the extent that we can. So I always like to say, the pie is big enough for all of us. We don't have to be competitive. We don't have to be territorial. We can help each other out and all succeed together. And that's one of the principal tenets of my advocacy philosophy is we can always help each other out. The next phase, once you've researched and you found out what's in your area, volunteer with them, because that allows you to kind of understand how to have an organization, how to run an organization, and you're able to learn from the existing organization. See if you can help make them better. See if you can help them improve. And if you find that, for whatever reason it's not working, then, definitely you can start your own thing. But it's always good to start with who you know and with what you know. If you want to have a nonprofit organization, you're going to have a board. And your board, it's recommended not to use family members, even though that's what we always want to do, because, you can always call on your family.
Right.
But for you to be 100% legitimate, you can't have, your family members saturating your entire board. You need to have neutral third parties. So you have to follow the guidelines of your state. Every state has the rules of setting up a nonprofit, and then you have to apply for a federal EIN, which is an employment ID number, and then you also have to apply for your nonprofit status and pay the fee. This varies. I think it's like $550 now. So once you do all that, so hypothetically, you want to have an organization, get the members for your board together, have a board meeting, decide the event that you want to do, try to raise some money to come up with the financing that you need to apply for your nonprofit status, and the financing that you need to, if you decide to get a lawyer, if you need to copy out your trademarks, things like that. So once you have your first event or your first 3 events, you raise some funds, you're able to use that to establish your organization. The more you network, the more you go to other events, the more you're able to build your relationships. Relationships are really what make nonprofit organizations successful. The better relationships you have, the more you'll be able to utilize their skills and their knowledge base to achieve your goals. And be a good leader. Being a leader is the hardest thing to do, because you have to be able to communicate effectively with the people who are working with you about your vision, about your goals, about your requirements. And for me, that's been one area that's really a challenging point for me, because my personality is I have a vision in my head of what I want things to look like, but I can't tell you how to get there. I can just tell you what I want the finished product to be. Right.
Okay.
So you need to have, people on your team who can maybe, if knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, people who can augment your strengths and your weaknesses to kind of help you get to where you want to go. And always, give encouragement and praise to people, because, they're doing this for you. They don't have to do this, but they're doing it for you, and most of them are doing it free of charge, or because they believe in your vision and they believe in your passion. So definitely support your team and encourage them. Even if, let's say you set a goal that you were going to raise $500 and you only raised $150, you have to be the one to be like, you know what, team, we didn't do it this time, but we're going to do it next time. And you have to be the cheerleader, because you're the leader. That's what being the leader is all about. And then also, take classes and educate yourself. Many universities, many local community colleges have different courses in business. You're definitely going to need that if you want to have a nonprofit organization. And just keep going. It's hard. It's definitely hard. The first 7 years are the hardest.
You have actually given a very, very good description about the process, and I think that because it is so hard, that's why people come to you and they say, I want to start my own, but they don't, because they figure out, hey, this is really hard. And it really is, I think, if possible, better to join and work with an organization that is already in existence, and bring your skill set to that organization, which will then enhance that organization's ability to do the job it's trying to do. I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about some other aspects of Tosin Ola. And here's another amazing thing for our audience to know about you. Although you have sickle cell disease, you are a certified nurse and you're continuing to advance your education. Please tell us, how did you get started in nursing?
Oh, that was my mom.
That was your mom?
That was 100% my mom.
Okay.
I was in school, and I was really focused on my studies, a really good student. But when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom suggested, she said, "Why don't you try nursing?" And I was undecided for my first year because I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And she said, "Try nursing." And so I registered for the nursing program, and it has been the most rewarding profession personally that I could have picked. It's very difficult. Nursing school is challenging, don't get me wrong, because it is extremely demanding. It is the most demanding major that you could have because they pack so much instruction in those 2 to 4 years, and then on top of that you have to do clinicals where you go to the hospital and you have to log X amount of clinical hours. So the combination thereof was enough to have me in the hospital sick, in crisis. I missed many exams because I was in crisis. I remember during my second year, I spent the first semester of my second year in the hospital, and my classmates would bring notes to me every day, and I would be in the hospital with my IV and my feeding meds, like trying to study and study for my exams. But fortunately, my school was really helpful in that they supported me in my dream of getting that nursing degree, and many of my teachers were part of the reason why I was able to graduate. But all I got back then was an associate's degree in nursing, and then I went back for my bachelor's, and I did that online, and that was easier and more flexible with sickle cell disease because if I was in crisis, I could still do my classes and do studying because everything was online. So that was definitely a lot easier.
All right. Well, so, because of health and financial issues or financial issues, many people with sickle cell want to, they want to achieve higher education, but those things get in their way and stop them. And you've kind of given me some answers already to the question I'm about to ask you, but how did you manage that? I mean, for one, you actually have to be determined, and obviously from listening to you for a while now and knowing your background and knowing you are a determined person. So would you speak to what it takes from a determination standpoint to be able to achieve higher education?
You have to keep your end goal in mind, and you need a lot of prayer. You need people praying for you. I had, my mom and her friends, they were like my prayer warriors, and I would just call and say, "You guys need to pray for me because I don't think I can do this." So you need to have like support, community support, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends. You need to have support. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's one thing that really helped me financially. Being a student, I came from Nigeria, so I had to pay the international student rate, and I couldn't afford it. My mom was also a student at that time. She was working on her PhD, and my dad was in Nigeria where the Naira does not transfer equally. $1 is 250 Naira, so he would have to use 10 years of his pay in order to pay one semester of tuition where I was in school. So for me, financially, my recourse was scholarships and grants. And there are so many unclaimed scholarships, especially as a minority student. Many people don't realize that there's so many scholarships out there. And it's not just for, obviously there's not that many scholarships for sickle cell disease, but because you're a minority, because you're a woman, because you're doing nursing, because you're doing engineering, whatever reason there financial aid office and request for the information for the scholarships that you may be eligible for. There are many scholarships available online. The hardest part for scholarships is the essay, but that is the part that really sells you to the scholarship committee, and that's the part that makes them decide that they will give you the scholarship. So you need to pour everything you can in that essay. Tell them that you're the first person in your family who wants to go to college. Tell them you have sickle cell disease and you are in pain 75% of the time, but it's your desire to get your bachelor's degree in whatever it is. Like, put your life story in that essay and then send it off with a prayer and some great recommendation letters I applied for 30 scholarships every semester, and I only received money from 2 or 3 of them.
Wow.
So you have to cast a really wide net in order to get back some money. But when I graduated from my associate's degree, I was 100% debt free.
Wow.
I didn't have to take student loans, and the school actually owed me $7. So it's possible. It's possible to do it, through scholarships and through grants. If you do decide to do nursing, they do have this grant that you can accept, where if you work for a hospital, an indigenous hospital, or in a hospital in a high something area, they call it a high need area, they will completely pay off your student loans if you work there for 2 to 3 years.
Right. So
there are different grants available for people. America is a great country, and please, you have all the resources here, but you guys just have to really take advantage of it, and you have to do the work. Nobody's just going to be like, oh yeah, here's $5,000 for you to go to school.
Right.
They're not just going to give it to you. You have to step up, and like Gary said earlier, you have to demand it. And the way you do that is for applying to scholarships. Don't miss the deadline. Get your essays in order, and hopefully you'll receive more than you need.
Your wealth of information. Here in Indianapolis, we have a sickle cell patient advocate who is also a nurse. Her name is Jade Parker, and I'm very impressed with her ambition and her spirit as well. I just had to say that because I wanted to give a shout out to her. She's an awesome person. And what advice would you have for any sickle cell patients that want to get into nursing?
Nursing? Hi, Jade. Hi. You go, girl. Nursing is a really great profession because it gives you a lot of flexibility in your schedule, and there's so many areas that you can work in nursing. You could do pediatrics, you can work in the lab, you can work in research, you can work on the ward, you can work in the ICU and the ER. There's so many areas. But the thing about nursing is it's a physically demanding job if you're working in the hospital. So the hospital setting is physically demanding, which means that on top of your sickle cell pain, you may have other aches and pains from just, pushing and pulling patients all day long. So in that setting, don't be ashamed to ask for help. You have other people that can help, to discharge a patient. You can say to your nurse's aide, can you please push that patient to the car for me? Things like that. Just those little, for someone else, it may not be a big deal, but for you, because you know that you're also dealing with your sickle cell, you don't want to put too much stress on your body. So you may have to, just ask for help in a few more areas than the typical person would. And you don't have to say, oh, it's because of my sickle cell. Just say, hey, Linda, can you please help me push this patient out, whatever. Or call the transport team to help transport the patient, or call the lift team to help lift the patient. Don't feel like you have to do it because you're the nurse. You can't physically take on that demand, because trust me, I tried it for the first 3 years of my nursing career. I was doing everything like, Superwoman, but physically I was paying for it every night.
Understood. Well, and you get those 12-hour shifts and things like that too. That is an issue. Yeah, that's an issue. All right.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll continue our discussion with Tosin Ola. But before we do, just wanted to let you know that the Sickle Cell Action Network is a service of Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative in Indianapolis, Indiana. We are a 47-year-old not-for-profit organization that's been providing services to people with sickle cell disease for 46 of those 47 years. Those services that we offer include a support group, a food pantry, limited emergency financial assistance, transportation assistance, referrals to other social services. We also do education and outreach within central Indiana and even outside of central Indiana up into the northern parts of the state. And we do health fairs, and we do school presentations, and we do presentations to businesses, and that's a big part of what we do. And then the third aspect of our existence is devoted to advocacy, where we push for more support for people with sickle cell disease. You're listening to the Sickle Cell Action Network. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network. The Sickle Cell Action Network show is sponsored by MAST Therapeutics, a publicly traded biopharmaceutical company headquartered in San Diego, California. MAST is currently leveraging the molecular adhesion and sealant technology platform derived from over 2 decades of clinical, non-clinical, and manufacturing experience with purified and non-purified polaxamers. MAST has developed a drug called MST-188 as a candidate for serious or life-threatening diseases with significant unmet needs. Among those needs is the treatment of sickle cell disease. MAST has enrolled sickle cell patients in a clinical trial known as EPIC. EPIC stands for Evaluation of Purified Polaxamer in Crisis. If successful, EPIC could result in the first treatment of its kind to treat sickle cell disease patients while they are in crisis. The EPIC study aims to determine whether MST-188 can shorten the duration of a painful crisis. MST-188 is an investigational drug that has not been approved for commercial sale in any jurisdiction for any use. MST-188 potentially improves oxygen delivery, and it may help keep blood vessels from becoming blocked and more obstructed. It may improve blood flow by stopping cells from grouping together. It also may reduce inflammation, and it may restore cell membranes and give damaged cells time to heal. EPIC participants continue to receive their normal pain treatments during crisis, and their participation is free of charge to them. The patients involved in the EPIC study may not only be helping themselves, but they might also be helping future generations of those yet to be born. If you are interested in learning more about the EPIC study, please visit www.theepicstudy.com. Speaking of MAST Therapeutics, one thing that we'd like our viewers, our listeners to know is that our guest today, Tosin Ola, does some work with MAST Therapeutics. And Tosin, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your role with our sponsor, MAST Therapeutics. How did you get started working with them, and what do you do for them?
All right. Thank you very much. I'm the corporate liaison for MAST Therapeutics. I started working with them in 2013. I met them at a sickle cell event, and I had this great conversation with the leadership, and I realized that they were really passionate about helping patients with sickle cell disease and learning more about sickle cell. So when I was invited to come onto the staff at MAST, primarily my role is to lend expertise and provide valuable insight both from a patient and advocacy perspective, toward the company, so that as they were, going through their clinical trial, and now as, we're moving on past the clinical trial, that they'll be able to really be very in touch with the dilemma that sickle cell patients face, and that they would really have a better and deeper level of understanding about sickle cell disease. So it's been a mutually beneficial relationship, and I really enjoy working for the company. One of the earliest projects that I worked on was the Voice Crisis Alert app, and for me it was just amazing that a pharmaceutical company would create, for no benefit of their own, an app for sickle cell patients, for people living with sickle cell, just because they realized that there was a need for it. And you can download the Voice Crisis Alert app. It's completely free. The information is private. It stays on your phone. They don't have any access to it. You have my Tosin Ola word on that, because that was one of our points when I worked with the development team. And the app essentially helps to communicate when you're having a pain episode or pain crisis. You can communicate to your loved ones, to your healthcare providers, that you're having a pain episode. And it also tracks your pain episodes, and it stores it on the phone for up to 90 days. Another great feature of the app is there's one page on there where you can put your medical history in. So when you're going to the emergency room and you're in so much pain you can barely talk, all you have to do is show your phone to the nurse, and she can just get your medical history right from that page. The other cool feature that I think is super awesome is also, hypothetically, once you're in a crisis, let's say you log your pain. Right now I'm having pain in my back. I would go touch the back on the picture and choose the number 6, and then I can send a text message to my husband so he knows I'm having pain right now. Instead of me having to type that whole thing, the app does it for me. And it's just such a great communicative tool. I talked to Lisa Rose. Her daughter has sickle cell disease, and she actually told me that communicating pain has been like a part that's really difficult with her daughter, but using the app, she's able to do it because she can just look at the face of the avatar, and she can just see, what her level of pain is based on that. So the app was designed for children and teenagers, but anyone can use it. I use it and I'm 35 years old, and it's a really great tool. So you can download it. It's the Voice Crisis app. Just type in Voice Sickle Cell, either in the iTunes store or in the Android store, and check it out. If you don't like it, you can delete it. But it was one of the projects that I worked on and I'm really proud of. And to me, it just shows that Mass Therapeutics is a company that's really dedicated to improving the lives of people with sickle cell disease, and in just any way that they can.
Well, I second that. First of all, the Crisis app is a tremendous tool that we encourage all of our client members to use, and we certainly recommend it for all of those patients that have sickle cell disease wherever they may be. It is an awesome tool, and as you said, it was designed for no purpose, no benefit of MAST at all. They wanted to help the community, and that's the other thing that I want to have a second on, which is that I've had several discussions with MAST leadership over the years, and I continue to be impressed with the level of compassion and commitment to the sickle cell cause and the sickle cell community, and certainly as a corporation they want to be successful and make money and make profits for their shareholders, but MAST is in this to help people, and that has come across so clearly, and it is one of those things that I think separates them from many other companies that are out there. So you're in with good people, and thank you for sharing that with us. So let's change topics now and get into something else that I think is amazing about you. You recently had twin babies. Congratulations on that. But as I understand it, it was maybe a difficult time with your pregnancy and your delivery. But before I ask you about that, tell us about your babies. What are their names and how old are they now?
All right. So the twins, they're both boys, and they are almost 17 months old, so that's like a year and 5 months, and they are just little bundles of activity. They have so much energy. If I could take their energy and just inhale it, I think it would make me like the Energizer Bunny. I honestly don't know where they get it from, because they really don't sleep for all the level of energy that they have. But the oldest one, the one that came out first, his name is Ariel Oluwafamileri. And Ariel is Lion of God. Oluwafamileri, that's Yoruba, and that means God is making me laugh. And that's because when the nurse told me you're having twins, I started laughing. And then the second one is Orion, and that's light of the world, light of peace. and his Yoruba name is Oluwakayode, and that means God has given me joy. So God has given me laughter, and God has given me joy, and that's pretty much how it is with them all day.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. You know, I think the answer to this question is going to show people just how strong of an individual you are. Tell us a little bit about the issues you encountered during the pregnancy and the delivery.
Oh my. So my first trimester was relatively easy. I didn't have any major issues besides nausea. My second trimester is when my issues started, and that was, you know, obviously because they're twins, and I have sickle cells, so I was freaked out, my doctors were freaked out, we were all freaking out, my husband was freaking out, we're all freaking out together. And halfway through my second trimester, I believe it was week 25 of my pregnancy, that was when I had my first crisis, and it was horrible. I was in so much pain, I was crying. So my husband took me to the emergency room, they admitted me immediately, and essentially what happened was my body, I had 87% sickled cells.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, hemoglobin SS, sickle cells. So my body was shunting the best blood to the twins and then giving my body the crappy blood. So that's why I was having pain all over my body. So they were I was at the university hospital, and they were very concerned because I did have a specialist. I had a pediatric neonatologist. I also had my hematologist. I also had the regular primary doctor, and they all were just really they understood what they were doing for their specialty, but it was hard combining it together. For example, my OBGYN, her focus was letting me have a successful pregnancy and having a safe delivery. My hematologist, his focus was on managing my blood and making sure that my blood wasn't sickling to the levels it was. My perinatologist's focus was on the babies, that the babies were not getting a lot of pain medicine. So everyone had their direct focus. And for me, the biggest challenge was trying to pull it all together. And I think my nursing background really helped here. Because eventually what ended up happening was I just had to call a meeting. I said, okay, guys, you all are telling me different things. We all need to have a meeting. Thursday, 3 o'clock. Everybody come to my room. We're all going to talk this through.
Okay.
So the patient called the doctor meeting. Anyway, they humored me. They all showed up, and we pretty much talked it through. And essentially, we came to an agreement on my plan of care. And so I had to have an exchange transfusion, I think that first week. And then they rechecked my blood, and it took a few days to come back. And then at that point, I had 45% sickled blood. But the neonatologist did not like this. That's the doctor taking care of the babies. He said, that's dangerous to the babies. I want to have her to have less than 10% sickled blood. So they, even though it's out of their normal protocol, because usually they don't do an exchange transfusion more than once a month, they did another one for me about a week later, and then that brought my sickled blood less than 10%. And so that kind of took me out of the danger zone for a little bit. But I was still in high amounts of pain because my body was still shunting the good blood to the twins, and Mama wasn't getting out any nutrients.
Wow.
So I ended up spending most of, pretty much 20 weeks in the hospital, and because they just felt like they needed to have closer monitoring on the whole situation. And then they sent me home in January, and then I came back a week later and had the baby. So it was the whole period was just really scary. I remember my mom, she was calling me from Nigeria, and the pregnancy at this point was 30 weeks. And she said, I read on the internet that it's safe. They can come out. Just take them out so you'll survive. And I was like, no, I want them to stay in as long as they can stay in. For myself, I just felt like the longer they stayed in, the better it would be for them. And, I ended up delivering at 37.5 weeks, which for twins is pretty much, that's the home stretch. And they only spent 5 days in the NICU, and then we all went home. So everything worked out great.
So, but all told, about how many days did you stay in the hospital?
So, the first time that I was in the hospital was 65 days.
Good
and then the
gosh.
next time that I was in the hospital was another 5 days. So total was 70 days.
Wow, 70 days in the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, as I said during the introduction of the show, my wife had a miscarriage during a sickle cell crisis, and she lost the twins that she was carrying. I always wonder if there was something that should have been done differently. Was there anything special that you did to maintain your health and that of your babies other than what you've just told us? Maybe it was the coordinated meetings, the collaboration that you forced between all of the different specialists. What do you think helped you actually succeed in delivering these twin bundles of joy?
Yeah, I think it wasn't anything that I did. I really just think it was the grace of God and the prayers of my family. My dad's a minister, and my mom's a prayer warrior, so they had like churches praying on my behalf. And I did the exchange transfusion, and that was a big deal, and that was really controversial because my OBGYN, she felt like she agreed to it, but initially she felt like it was being too overly aggressive.
Okay.
But most people who are pregnant don't do the exchange transfusion because they feel like that's too much of the new blood on your body for your body to process. That's too much work for your organs when you're already pregnant.
Right.
But doing that and then doing the second one, I think really turned the tide for me. And honestly, if I hadn't had that, I don't think that I would have been able to carry the boys to term. I really think that had a significant impact on my health personally.
Well, thanks for sharing so much personal information, but I know you do that in the spirit of wanting to help others, but thank you for doing that. Before we take our last break, I'm going to ask you this question. Judging from what you've told us, I'm assuming that you're married to an exceptional man. Tell us a little bit about him, if you would.
So my husband's name is Orion. It's spelled Orion like the constellation, but we call him Orion. And yeah, he's definitely, he is, that's a good description. He's an exceptional person. He's not a typical, he's not a typical person. He doesn't think in the typical way. So for me, like, being with him has been an adventure because he just sees the world in this unique way that makes things interesting and exciting when they're normally not. And so he's very forgiving, very understanding, and I think that, if you are with someone who has sickle cell disease or a chronic disease, you just have to be, because there's so much additional stress on the relationship because of the chronic disease, because of the sickle cell, that you have to be very, very forgiving, very understanding, and very kind to the person. And I know it's difficult for him, and this is one thing that we talked about as a result of the patient family symposium that we went to last time in 2014. And I didn't realize how much strain was put on him because of my sickle cell, because I'm the one in it. So I'm in this bubble of like, oh, it's my sickle cell, and
right.
my journey, it's my sickle cell, But, having that conversation, it made me realize that it's actually our sickle cell. Like, he's in it with me, and I'm not alone.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's kind of like my co-captain on the journey, and he bears the brunt of the load when I'm not able to carry my portion, essentially. Even with the boys now, when I'm really sick or when I'm not feeling well, he's the one that gets up at night, every night, to take care of them, and he's the one who manages them when mommy's feeling crappy. So, yeah, he's definitely a really great not everyone is as lucky. So had to weed through a lot of frogs.
Well, you know what? On behalf of all of those within the Sickle Cell Warriors community, certainly they owe him a big thanks as well for helping to keep you going. We're going to take our last break, and when we return, we will wrap up our conversation with Tosin Ola. This is the Sickle Cell Action Network on RadioNext.tv, the Cool Groove site. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network here on RadioNext.tv, and we are speaking with the wonderful Tosin Ola, and we're going to wrap up our conversation here with Tosa with just a few more questions. Give us a little bit more insight, Tosin, on some of this. From your perspective, what are the top 3 challenges facing the sickle cell community today? That's a tough one, huh?
That's a tough one, yeah. I think the first one is cohesion and unity. And I just mean that in the advocacy realm and also in the sickle cell community, because the community is affected by what happens in the advocacy realm. When I first got into advocacy, one thing that I realized is there are all these groups and they're all pulling in opposite directions. So we're not getting as much done as we could if we really united and really went after the same goals with the same fervor that we were pulling in all these opposite directions. And that's one thing that I really love the Sickle Cell Consortium for, is that Lakia has been able to kind of really get all these different sickle cell advocacy organizations and people interested in helping sickle cell advocacy all on the same page, in where these are all the initiatives open to us, and we're stronger together than working against each other and competing against each other. So we're able to really just blend our focuses and blend our energies and be successful all together. So we're all working together for the good of the sickle cell community.
Okay, so unity and cohesion is one. What about any others challenges?
Well, the other one is just awareness, and not just in the sickle cell community, but also in the public realm. There's a lot of misinformation with sickle cell.
Absolutely.
The fact that we still have these issues going on in the emergency rooms, obviously healthcare professionals have a lot of misconceptions about sickle cell that need to be targeted. So education and awareness, that's a huge issue, and I don't think that can ever be dealt with enough. And then the third is just research. Sickle cell has been around for over 100 years, and as of today, we only have one approved treatment, and that's hydroxyurea. The rest are supportive and palliative. And ideally, I would want to see a multimodal treatment spectrum where, just as with HIV, just as with cancer, there's all these drugs treating different aspects of the disease. One thing I've learned is that there are different things going on with sickle cell crisis, different things going on with sickle cell episodes. And so if we had enough drugs that dealt with each one, maybe it would improve everyone's quality of life and then also improve our mortality rates. I mean, it's ridiculous that our mortality rates are in the mid-40s right now. I'm 35, and when I was 20, that number 44 didn't seem as scary, but now I'm 35, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's nerve-wracking to me to think that I would only be with my boys for 10 years. Yeah,
and many others.
These are the things, these
I
are
agree.
The things that keep me up at night.
You're right about the medical education. We talked about this a little bit on our show before, but we're engaged in a novel project that we're not sure anybody else is doing in the country, and that is what we call the Emergency Department Sickle Cell Education Project, and we are reaching out and meeting with the emergency department directors here in all the hospitals in central Indiana, and we're providing them with the approved NHLBI protocol for treating people with sickle cell, and we're asking to give presentations to staff, whether it's doctors and nurses and even social workers, and we are in the process of continually rolling this out. and in fact had a meeting just today that went very, very well with the Indiana University Health Hospital. They call it IU Health Hospital North. Great meeting today, and we're finding that there is what we expected. There is a huge need for the providers to be receiving greater amounts of education on treating people with sickle cell. So we're actively engaged in that, and I'm glad you pointed that out as one of the main issues. From your perspective then, what are the top 3 things that give you hope for the sickle cell community?
For me, the first one is the fact that more people are getting involved in advocacy, especially the young generation. The older generation, they were raised in a bit more of a privacy era where you didn't talk about the fact you had sickle cell. But the young generation, the millennials, they're letting it all hang out.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
So the young generation gives me hope, and I just love the things that they're doing, especially some of the younger advocates. They have really brought it's like a wave of enthusiasm and energy into the sickle cell space. So that's the first one. The second one that gives me great hope is the fact that there are about 15 drugs right now that are in research, and hopefully the FDA will start approving drugs soon. And so it gives me hope that there's research being done, and hopefully more and more research will continue being done, and eventually we will have all these, multimodal therapy levels that I'm talking about. And then the third thing, just to continue to raise the public perception of sickle cell disease. That can never be done enough, and everyone has to do their part to make that happen. So hopefully that will happen in my lifetime.
Tosin Ola, as far as I know, there is no official Sickle Cell Hall of Fame, but if there was, you'd have my vote to be inducted into it. Do you have anything? Do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we let you go?
No, yes. If anyone would like to get involved with sickle cell in any way, Sickle Cell Warriors, we definitely need all the help we can get. So if you guys would like to get involved in advocacy, definitely check the website, and you can also email me, tosin@sicklecellwarriors.com. Also, if you feel inspired by this conversation and you want to donate to our efforts, don't hesitate to do so on the website. And if you guys are in Los Angeles area, please save the dates. And those of you coming to the Patient and Family Educational Symposium, it's July 28th through the 31st. So I look forward to seeing you guys in person. And I look forward to seeing you, Gary.
Tosin, I look forward to continuing to work with you, and I'm just very honored again that you spent your time with us today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right.
Great work.
Okay, thank you. You too. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as it's time to close out our show, as always, I do so with something to give you to think about. And today, I'm going to use a quote from the famous Chinese philosopher named Confucius. He said, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." Confucius, who lived from 551 to 479 BC, was a Chinese teacher, editor, politician, and philosopher of the spring and autumn period of Chinese history. He is traditionally credited with having authored or edited many of the Chinese classical texts, including all of the 5 classics. Apache, Spartans, Zulu, Samurai, Celts. These are names of some of the most famous warrior cultures in world history. The Apache were led at times by names like Geronimo and Cochise. The Spartans were led by men like Leonidas and Menelaus. The Zulu were led by Shaka and Dengane. People like Oda and Miyamoto were famous samurai warriors. Brennus and Boudica are credited with leading the Celts during their heyday. When you read the stories of these people, you can't help but be inspired by their daring and their achievements. you will also see that they had conquered their fears in order to be at their best during battle. The Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary says that a warrior is a person who fights in battles and is known for having courage and skill. I would say that this definition accurately describes the many millions of people who fight battles with sickle cell disease on a daily basis. Without a doubt, at least with the sickle cell patients that I know or have known, I would say that courage is absolutely one of the most impressive and important characteristics. To wake up in the morning with the realization that one can be knocked off their feet with some of the worst pain known to man takes a great deal of courage. And being able to manage the emotional roller coaster caused by a seemingly uncertain life takes a great amount of skill. If you are affected by sickle cell as a patient, a friend, or a caregiver, you know that it is a vicious enemy. It's every bit as treacherous as the white men who stole the sacred lands of the Native Americans. It is every bit as brutal as Xerxes, the Persian leader who fought to enslave the Greek state of Sparta. Sickle cell is every bit as mean as the Romans who invaded Britain in their quest for world domination. In fact, depending on how you look at it, sickle cell might be even more brutish than all of these enemies combined. Yes, sickle cell brings a battle to the field that is unlike any other. It can strike at any time in a seemingly infinite number of ways. Because of this, it is a formidable enemy, and it takes a strong warrior to be able to fight it time and time again. Warriors have courage and skill, but the best warriors have another attribute as well. They have perseverance, and that perseverance is what helps sickle cell warriors be the victors that they are. It has been an honor to speak with a modern-day warrior here today on the Sickle Cell Action Network show. I'm speaking about Ms. Tosin Ola-Weissman, the founder of the still-growing Sickle Cell Warriors community. Tosin and each of the 18,000 other sickle cell patients who belong to her community are true warriors. So are the many millions of other sickle cell patients around the world who have yet to join them. You know, one thing that Geronimo, Leonidas, and Shaka would all agree on is that there is strength in numbers. That's why it's so encouraging to see what is happening with the sickle cell warriors. Their numbers are growing, and that means that the sickle cell community's strength is growing. I think that this means that the future for sickle cell is getting brighter every day. So while the strength in numbers continues to grow, let me encourage you to remember what Confucius said. He who conquers himself is the greatest warrior. That's our show for today. Please join us again next week, same time.
Hi, I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host for the Sickle Cell Action Network Internet Radio Show. If you are impacted by sickle cell disease in any way, whether you are a patient, a caregiver, or a friend, you need to join me every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I promise that you will find our show to be full of information, perspective, and opinion about all things sickle cell. See you Tuesday right here on RadioNext.tv, the Cool Groove site.
It's new.